Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Office Hours. Happy Thursday evening. Thank you so much for joining me tonight. It is our monthly, once a month resume roast episode. I'm really looking forward to it. We have 4 new resumes to go over tonight. And I was busy rapidly taking notes right up till the very last second of going live. So we've got a lot to cover tonight. Really looking forward to it. And I want to hear from you. Where are you tuning in from? Let me know. Office Hours enjoys having a global audience. So I would love to know where you're tuning in from. Please let me know in the chat on YouTube or in the comments on LinkedIn. I'd love to hear from you and know where you're joining from. And I see the chat is starting. Hello, Dean from Maryland. Thanks for joining. Let me know, everyone, where you're coming in from. Love to know that you're sharing your evening or morning with me. So in any case, let's get into the reviews. So we have 4 resumes from totally different, like I said, totally different job seekers. The one thing in common with all these job seekers is they were laid off or furloughed first, I should say, and then fully laid off from their roles in various professions, various industries, and various locations, just like our audience. So we've got Mohammed from MN. Is that Minnesota? Is that Maryland? Oh my gosh, I'm so bad with US geography. Sorry. Delano tuning in from Southern Illinois. Thanks for joining. We've got Michelle from Minneapolis, Val from Phoenix, Vina from Manitoba, Kathy from St. Louis. I'm not sure the proper way to say it. And so glad to have you guys joining. Thanks so much for tuning in. So yeah, with our job seekers, everybody has either been furloughed and laid off, or laid off. All have lost their jobs due to pandemic-related circumstances, which is really tough for everybody. And so hoping that tonight will give them kind of a leg up in terms of their job search and refining their resumes. And hopefully y'all can take away some opportunities for learning from tonight as well, because no doubt you're going to see some similarities in these resumes, or some details in these resumes where you're like, I could make that change in my resume, or, oh, I'm doing that, I need to change that. So let's dive right in. All right, guys. So let me just turn this off for now, and then let me bring up the very first resume that we're going to look at. All right. So please do, as I mentioned, please do in the chat, put any of your questions as we're moving through this resume, and put anything that you're wondering about in the chat, in the comments on LinkedIn. We will get to your questions. I just won't be able to take a look right away while I'm going through the resume, but I promise you I will get to your question. So this resume is from a professional who is a credit and collections manager, and they are located over in Asia. And so with this, I believe they're located in Asia. I actually don't know. I had location as a question mark. So with this resume, depending on where you're tuning in from, you're going to see some details on this resume, or some formatting details on this resume that you probably wouldn't see on your resume, especially if you're tuning in from North America. So I am going to give a little bit of different feedback for this resume because of the region. And so let's just dive right into it. I've got a lot of notes. So first I'm going to talk about the structure of the overall resume. So structurally, we're not bad. So yeah, we're doing some good things. It's a little long, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that. So I think we're on 4 pages, a little longer than it needs to be, and we're overusing bullets. So that's kind of the cursory glance at this resume. Let's talk about the contact information here. So with the contact information, so we've got first name, last name, which is fine. There was a photo. I've obviously removed that photo. And the photo, if I'm assuming where this job seeker is located, if I'm assuming correctly, the photo is probably appropriate. So when we are job searching and creating our resume and editing our resume, when it comes to photo and also personal details, which are at the bottom of this resume, we need to be cognizant of what are the standards in our region, in the job market in which we're job searching. So where, like I said, where this job seeker is located, that may be an expectation, the photo and the personal information, which I'm kind of alluding to. But if you are in North America, absolutely do not include a photo. Absolutely do not include date of birth or marital status or number of children. That is not required. In fact, I discourage it because it can lead to bias. So definitely leave that stuff off your resume. But again, there could be regions internationally that do require these details. Let's keep going with the contact information. I don't love a white font on a dark background. The reason I don't love it is because I do worry about printing issues. Now, it's highly unlikely that a resume is going to be printed on paper in some cases, but it could be printed. And so we want to make sure that we are really working with both the digital file as well as possibly a hard copy printed format of your resume. So the white font on dark background is a little iffy. It's going to use a lot of toner. So I would recommend just moving this. You can use this blue font as well, but just use a colored or dark font on the white background would be my recommendation. Yeah, so location, didn't see one for you, but everything else was fine. Phone, email, which was hyperlinked, and LinkedIn, which was hyperlinked. So that's great. Let's talk about your professional profile paragraph. So one thing I'm really glad to see was how you identified the different industries or sectors in which you had experience. So that was good. When it comes to these paragraphs, it can be sometimes confusing about how we should approach them. So sometimes we write what we think the reader wants to hear. And that's what leads to using terms like detail-oriented and result-driven. So the reader doesn't really need to hear terms like that. And in fact, it doesn't really tell them anything about you. What they need to know about you is, can you do the work? And so what we really want to do in this paragraph is kind of give the reader a very quick snapshot of the fact that we can do the work. Really what I would do is in the first sentence of this paragraph is give the reader an idea of the large scope of, say, credit and collections business that you are used to managing and overseeing. So if we're talking, and I think you detail some dollar figures below, if we're talking like a $20 million credit and collections practice or portfolio or whatever is the proper term, let them know that. So let them know in the first sentence that you have the capability of overseeing credit and collections portfolios of up to, say, $20 million, and what you manage it to, like towards what end. Are you trying to, I think I saw you accelerated cash flow or something later on in your resume. So are you ensuring receivables are covered faster, that credit is paid back faster, how much faster? So that kind of thing is how I would address the opening paragraph. So before I keep going, I'm just going to pop into the chat to make sure that I'm not missing anything important. Okay. Hey, Erin. Hello. Thanks for joining. Hello, Kylie from South Carolina. Hello, LinkedIn user from Boston. Hello, Mia. Thanks for joining, everyone. All right. So let's get back into this one. Okay. So let's talk about your competencies here. So you are more than competent. So you can use a subheader here that it just says skills, or I like to use signature skills or areas of expertise, but you are more than competent in this area. So I wouldn't use the term competent or competencies, just skills is sufficient. And I would recommend moving this out of a table. So table isn't like the worst thing in the world when it comes to resume formatting, but it's not ideal. And so I have 2 videos on my YouTube channel about how to deal with your skills section. One that shows you how to build your skills in columns, no table required, or an option where it's like super easy, centering up your skills, very, very, very easy, the easiest way to format your skills section. So check out those 2 videos and move your skills out of the table. With the skills, you don't need bullets. It's not a big deal, but we are overusing bullets as we're seeing in the resume. So you might want to consider moving away from bullets and just using the words of your skills. Watch your acronyms. Throughout this resume, I see a lot of acronym use without first establishing what the acronym is. So like right here, in the paragraph, professional profile paragraph, we've got DSO. I don't know what DSO means. If I'm someone that is, say, an entry-level talent acquisition professional that is looking at a bunch of different disciplines and I see DSO, I'm probably not going to know what you're talking about. And so I would first, with your acronyms, establish what they are. So DSO, meaning whatever it is, debt service, something, I don't know, I'm guessing here. So spell it out and then put in brackets what the acronym is, and then you can continue using the acronym throughout. Okay. All right. So that goes for SBLC, BG. I don't know what that is. I would also avoid using slashes. It can have issues in terms of formatting and readability. So just use the full skill itself. If it is a skill that's required as defined in the job posting. Yeah, so avoid the slashes. But other than that, you're on the right track with your skills section. You're naming the skills. You're not saying like excellent debt collection skill or anything like that. So you're on the right track with your skills. Let's get into your work experience. So first of all, call it professional experience. It's not work. It's not just work experience, I should say. It's professional experience. You will need to explain what you've been doing since you were laid off from your last role. So just put a brief note in there about how you've been spending the time productively other than job searching, and maybe put in a note there as well about how you were laid off or let go due to a restructuring at this company. When it comes to listing our title and our company, my recommendation is to swap the two. So we list our title first, our position title first, followed by the company name. The reason for this is because our resume is a document that is marketing us as a job seeker, as a solution provider. It's not a document to market our previous or even current employers. So give less real estate to the employer's information, more real estate to what you've done. So that's why I do recommend switching or swapping the order of company name and title to title and company name. And also that's why we will want to switch up what we're writing in this paragraph. So this is saying a whole lot about your employer and nothing about you or the work that you've done. So instead of using the paragraph to give a huge amount of context to the company, give more context to your role within the company. So what were you hired to do for that company? And then give a little bit of context about the company. Like if I think I rewrote it here, let me just see. Yeah, so basically how I might approach describing your role within the company to start off this paragraph is something like oversaw however much credit and collections portfolio for the industrial manufacturer. I think that's what they make. I think that's the sector that they're in, an industrial manufacturing sector. So yeah, just start the sentence with how you served within that company, less about what the company is. The shading here, I think, is just too much. You don't need all the shading. Again, printability might become an issue here as well. I would just get rid of the shading or highlighting. Just the blue text is fine if you want to keep this kind of blue-green pops of color going. I would just eliminate any shading. Okay, so overall, as we already know, we've got too many bullets. Okay, and when we have a lot of bullets, first of all, we need to probably look at trimming some of them. But also we can use subcategories to give the reader's eye a bit of a break from the sea of bullets. And that's where you were headed, I can tell, because you have work profile here and then achievements, projects separated. So you were heading towards what I'm going to recommend next, but I'm going to give you a suggestion to make it even better. So I don't know what work profile means. I think in this case, you were talking about your responsibilities under the role, or kind of your overall mandate or the scope of your role. So I would not use subheaders like work profile or something generic like that, but more so something that identifies a big bucket or a big skill bucket, or like an umbrella type of skill. So like credit and collections highlights, leadership highlights, finance highlights, financial planning highlights, things like that. And then you can rearrange your bullets under each of those kind of umbrella skills so that you're still including quite a few bullets, but you're not including them in just kind of like big globs of bullets, if that makes sense. And you don't need to bold this text. Instead, put the best part of the accomplishment at the front of the bullet. So in this case, this bullet's a really good example. Move this right to the front of the bullet. So reduce disputes, and then you can unbold it. Reduce disputes by 3.6 million USD over a period of 1 year. I would say in just 1 year, or in only 1 year. And then you can add some context around it. So led and owned the dispute resolution process, building relationships between. I would say a bit more about that contextually. Led and owned, it sounds like it's more so like you optimized the dispute resolution process, or that you streamlined it or made it better in some way to actually achieve that reduction in disputes. So get more specific there if you could. All right, lots of notes here. All right, going down to credit controller now. Okay, so we need to give some context. So in the previous role, you gave too much context to the employer. Now we need some context for the employer, just so the reader gets an idea of kind of the environment in which you are operating. So with the bullets here, we've got a little too much on responsibilities. I would use a small paragraph to kind of sum up your overall responsibilities and the scope of your role. And then use the bullets to highlight your accomplishments. I like where you're headed with the subheader here, so that's good. I don't know how marketing relates to credit and collections, so might want to take a look at that. Again, acronyms, we got to be careful with those. DSO, don't know what it is, so make sure that you're spelling out your acronyms the first time you use them, putting the acronym in brackets, and then you can use them throughout. Accelerated cash, yeah, this one sounded cool, and I wanted to dig into it a bit more. So what do you mean you accelerated cash? I don't know what that means. Does it mean that you accelerated collections, that you were getting that you were increasing the collections that were incoming or inbound by 35 to 40 million euros each month. I think that's what you mean. Instead of saying to the tune of, I would just say by. So by 35 to 40 million euros. All right. So that's what I wanted to mention about that. As we're getting further down, this is getting quite a ways back. You might want to consider using an early career section where you can identify the best accomplishments or highlight the absolute best accomplishments from your earlier roles. So you're not listing out every single job, because we do get very far ways back here. So I would just take maybe the best accomplishment from each of these roles and create an early career section where you can talk about those highlights, and maybe give a bullet as well to describe the roles or describe how you moved from an accountant or an accounting role into credit, so that the reader can get an understanding of how you've come to be in kind of a credit and collections management career. And then education. With your education, we don't want to describe the credential. We really want to just list it so it's easily identifiable. So before, you had honors graduate as Bachelor of Commerce in et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I just changed it to Bachelor of Commerce with honors in advanced accountancy and financial management, and where you got your degree. So that's what I would do, just to make it really easy, really identifiable. And then for this professional, I'm not clear. Did you get an accounting designation? If so, what was it? When did you get it? Do you still hold it? So we'll want to be clear about things like that. And then getting on to the end here, personal information, again, region specific. If it's North American resume or you're job searching in North America, we cut this completely. And if you are writing a North America or a resume for the North American job market, you don't include this personal information, and you do not include a photo. All right, let's get into the chat. Any questions from that review? I will revisit the chat. It's a bit delayed, so I apologize if you are typing something right now and I miss it. All right, so let's go to the next one. This is for a territory manager in sales. Okay, so let me just check, make sure you're seeing it. Looks like you are. Fantastic. All right, so sales, here we go. So structurally, not bad. Pretty simple, good amount of white space, not bad structurally. We are missing our professional profile paragraph here. So I think that you were thinking of, I think you had it in mind as you were building this list here. This list strikes me more as kind of like a skills list rather than a professional profile, although it's got components of both. So when we scroll down, what I personally found super cool and fascinating about your career was that you've been doing sales, you've been a territory manager for some years, but your original career was as a pastry chef. I thought that was super cool. So I would honestly use the professional profile paragraph to kind of talk more about how you have the skills that most territory managers don't have, in that you actually worked in food. So I would really highlight that in the professional profile paragraph. And also in that paragraph, I would really draw attention to kind of your track record of growth, like how you're known for achieving a certain level of growth as a territory manager, how you're known for achieving a certain level of growth within
I think you mentioned well-established territories, possibly large territories, the type of client that you work with. You mentioned kind of generically the type of organizations or establishments that they are, but if you can name drop some really recognizable clients, that would be awesome, and really help the reader understand quickly the type of clientele, type of customer that you cater to, so they can actually picture you doing the same at their company. So rather than just listing kind of like highlights, like this reminds me actually of like Netflix. When Netflix describes movies or shows, they'll put like cerebral, intense, action, or whatever, things like that. So this is what this kind of reminds me of. So it's not saying enough for the reader. They need to understand kind of cohesively how this all fits together in a little bit of a story that you would tell in a small paragraph. Okay. All right. But then after that, you would follow up with a skill section. So that might be where you put your key account management, your territory management, your brand marketing, CRM, new business, things like that. Whatever skills are within a job posting that jump out to you as being important and are skills that you have in your own skill set and can also speak to in your work experience, in your resume, that those are the skills that you would list in a skill section. So again, make sure to watch my videos on building a skills section. So either the easiest way or the column method, whichever you prefer. All right, so let's talk about your work experience. So again, please rename this to professional experience. We do need a note in here that's ahead of your last role that mentions that you are ready for your next role following the restructuring at your company name, as well as a bullet of, say, how you've been productively spending the time since you departed the company. Maybe you took a course on sales or something. There's a lot, not that I want to add anything to anyone's plate, but there are a lot of free or low cost courses that you can take to show employers how you've been working hard to keep your skills fresh. So it is my recommendation to take a course if you can, if you have the time, if you have the resources. I would recommend that you take some sort of course to show that you've been trying to keep current. So yeah, you can mention a couple bullets here with the date range of September 2022 present to show the future employer that you've been working on your skills and that you're ready for your next role and that you were laid off. Okay, so let's look at your first territory manager role. I think the cities that you had italicized before were territories. I took them out. Not sure. But I think that they were. If they were, we need a little bit more context for the reader so they know that those are your territories. Instead of just listing territories, I would instead use a small paragraph to talk about your role and its scope and what you were responsible for, and then mention the territories that you were entrusted with. I want to see more about your type of customers or the portfolio of customers that you cater to earlier in the description of this role. So probably within that mini paragraph we're going to use to describe the role. Want to see less about the company and what they sell, more about your role within the company. So you are doing pretty well with quantifiable accomplishments. So you've got a lot of numbers in here, which is good. Now we need to round out these bullets with context. So this was my favorite bullet. This is pretty good, like really good. So I would want to know how you achieved that turnaround. What did you do to achieve that sales growth? So help the reader understand that.
I see that you mentored new hires here. Did you manage a team? If you did, make sure that the reader knows that. Let's see here. Okay, so one of the pitfalls with quantifiable accomplishments is sometimes we can kind of discount our work or diminish our work a little bit. So in this case, we've got, you executed this turnaround in 2016. You delivered this sales growth in 2019. And so that leaves the reader possibly thinking, well, what happened in 2017 and 2018? So if you have an overall growth figure during your time in this territory manager role, I would probably use that figure instead of just a single year's figure. This turnaround is good. I would maybe say less about it being 2016 and more so about it being your first year in this new role. So that we're not kind of drawing attention to a lack of accomplishments, say in 2017 and 2018. So I'm curious about the difference between these two territory manager roles. Is it the same except your territory expanded or it changed? Can you help the reader understand a little bit better about kind of the difference between the two? And you have some good accomplishments here as well. Again, we want to round these out with the how. How did you do this? So you achieved 91% new account retention in 2014. How did you do that? And so we're also capturing a very large time frame here. So we might, again, want to move away from year-specific accomplishments and more so about your total tenure as you were headed, where you were headed with this bullet. So we want to make sure that we're really capturing these 11 years. Like this is quite a bit of time. And so we want to make sure that we're doing it justice. Also, you've got some really interesting notes down here, kind of about your involvement in product. So you engaged the food science team regarding client questions on natural, fair trade, organic, et cetera, et cetera. So did you get involved in making sure that products were natural or fair trade or organic? What was your influence in product design or product creation? Maybe get into that a little bit. Let's see here, consulted clients on what products best fit their specific applications. So maybe get a bit more specific about how you matched products to their needs. You can also really lean on your previous experience in food service and talk about how you leverage those insights and skills to properly match client needs and products. So that's an idea. Let's talk a bit more about the pastry chef role as well. I'm glad that you were brief here. We might want to drop the date entirely. You want to make sure that you give the reader an idea of the scope of the production that you had going on here as executive pastry chef. Like how much production are we talking here? Like how many pastries or desserts or menus or food were you creating daily, weekly, what have you, along with your team? I'd also recommend including a bullet here that shows you understand what your current clients' needs are. So I think where we can do this is you said that you produced 95% of the menu items by scratch, or from scratch, I should say. So that means there's 5% that wasn't created from scratch. So I'm guessing that's where a supplier like the one that you worked for most recently would come in. So how did you, as a customer of a pre-made or prefabricated, whatever you call it, food, how did you as a customer identify or source what would be good or appropriate foods to actually put on the menu? So I would talk about that there. And then for your education section, I think I would drop pharmacology unless you obtained a
degree, or if you're considering going into pharma sales, I would probably just drop that altogether and just keep your BSci and your associate's degree. Yes, for skills section, we talked about this already. We're going to move that up higher onto page 1. All right, so that was a lot of information. Let's hop over to the chat. All right, any questions from the viewers? Please let me know. Wow, time is flying. We're only halfway through. So we've got 2 more resumes to go. Again, please do let me know what your questions are in the chat. And also, if you're feeling generous, please give me a reaction or a like to this video. I'd really appreciate it. Also lets me know that you like these resume roast videos and that I should keep doing them. So I appreciate it if you could let me know. All right, let's head over to the next resume. Okay. Okay, let's make sure everyone can see this. Looks like we can. Okay. All right. And Dean, I see your question. How would you say that without being lengthy? Sorry, there's a delay between me speaking and actually the comments coming through on the chat. So can you replay for me what I actually said? Let me know what you're asking about. All right, let's look at this resume here. I'm gonna zoom in a bit. Okay, so this resume is for a talent development trainer. So again, furloughed, laid off, wants to get back into being a trainer. So let's talk about structure. So structurally, I sense that you felt pressured to be on one page. You do not need to keep your resume on one page. In fact, I would really recommend that you now move on to 2 pages, because then you're going to be able to say more, write more. You're going to be able to use a larger font size. It's just going to feel much more comfortable and much easier if you move on to 2 pages. We're also going to be, with 2 pages, we'll also be able to include more information. Okay, so, or we'll be able to add in the sections that are missing. So we do need a professional profile paragraph. So that is certainly missing from this resume. We want to help the reader understand your approach to training and why you're great at it and why they would want to or need to hire you. Like, talk about how your approach to training, how you feel it's different or unique. Give the reader some insight into how you kind of operate as a trainer. I do recommend putting in a title here. So that would be, say, talent development trainer or corporate trainer, whatever the title is to the job to which you're applying. All right. Also in the profile paragraph, I would talk about how you are really a teacher. You've done a lot of teaching, as we can see from earlier here, as well as being a tutor following your layoff. So talking about how you are a teacher at heart, I sense that's how you show up as a professional. So I would include that. Skill section. So skill section, just transplant it from the bottom here closer to the top, just under your professional profile paragraph. In your contact information. So for city and state, the city you included there, I think is part of a larger metro. So I would recommend including the larger metro. You had phone, email. You'll want to make sure that you hyperlink your email, and I have a video on how to hyperlink links in your resume. So check that out on my YouTube channel. And then LinkedIn, you had your LinkedIn, but you'll also want to make sure that you hyperlink this as well.
Okay, so your experience section, I would just rename that to professional experience. For your tutoring, the accomplishments that you have are good. I would maybe, instead of what you have here for your opening mini paragraph, instead of talking about conducting skills assessments, study plans, I should say, instead of just talking about conducting these things, I would spend more of this paragraph talking about what the end goal is for actually conducting these assessments or designing study plans. Is it to improve academic performance? I think yes. Is it to help the students achieve admission to certain schools? Like, get a little more specific there so that the reader can understand how you really help, like the solution you really provide to the students. Let's hop down to retail trainer. So let's have a little more information here about being a retail trainer. Help the reader really understand what you were doing, what you were responsible for, what you were leading. Also, we need a little bit more in the accomplishments department, maybe at least one more. I realize this was a 1-year goal, but maybe just one more accomplishment would be great. So some things that I would recommend is give the reader an idea of how many employees you trained and where they were geographically, how geographically dispersed they might have been. When we talk about the number of employees being trained here, like doubling the number of employees trained, instead of saying doubling, I would just say increase number of employees trained by 200%. The digits are much easier to read, faster. So I would use numbers instead of saying doubling. And the how you achieved it by training interested team members from different departments. So I feel that kind of detracts from your involvement in doubling or increasing by 200% the number of team members trained on this program. And so maybe I would say something instead. I think what you're trying to say is that you actively pursued people who were interested in learning this and then train them because they were interested. So instead, I would maybe say that you proactively pursued employees who were interested and how you might have done that. Like, did you have a call out for those who were interested? Did you develop some sort of like internal marketing program to help identify those who were interested in learning this program? So make it more about what you did rather than just saying that it's by training interested team members. And then you increase KPIs by 35 points. I think you mean 35%, but what KPI? Like what was it? Let's be specific there. The decreasing inventory discrepancies notes is good, but we want to make sure that it really relates back to training. So I would make this bullet more about how you trained others to adopt this new process that you built, which led to the decrease in inventory discrepancies or the increase in accuracy, however you want to phrase it. But yeah, make this more about how you trained others on it, less about the inventory. I hope that makes sense. All right, assistant restaurant manager. So this section is very strong. So I'm really, really happy with what you're working on here. You have a lot of really good quantifiable accomplishments. It's very, very skewed towards training. It's skewed towards training programs. Like, this is a very strong part of your resume. I would say the strongest part of your resume. The only thing, and I'm getting picky here,
is where you said you developed a training curriculum that qualified 20 culinary employees to lead training programs within 3 months. So maybe I would call that out as a train the trainer program, since that's kind of an industry standard term. So train the trainer. But like I said, I'm getting picky with this section. You did a really good job here. Carrying down, you don't need the subheader of additional experience. This is really experience that belongs in the main experience section. My concern is that you might encounter some bias speaking of missionary work. And maybe that's why you put it under additional, like an additional experience section. So is there a way that we can rename this? Or we don't have to. I'm just putting it out there that you may encounter bias around that. But otherwise, again, strong section of your resume, good accomplishments. I'm just worried about the bias factor. But yeah, this is looking good. Your education section is great. Yeah, you're really on the right track. So just in summary, go ahead and move on to 2 pages. You're going to have a much easier time with it, and increase your font size at least to an 11. Okay. All right. Let's hop back over into the chat. All right. I'm going to stop the share. So, all right, Tracy, how would you explain a temp job, like a job that's only for a month? I would probably just give it a one-line, mention about how you served as a, let's say it's a receptionist. So served as a receptionist for whatever company, and then put the date range. You don't need to say much at all. Just a one-liner is sufficient. Shira, late on resume 1, they use both bullet points and check marks. Is it okay to mix them, or should you be consistent throughout the whole document? Sorry, I didn't pop this up. Yes, so I would be consistent and use the same bullet style throughout. There's really no benefit of using different bullet styles, and it just might muddle up the look and feel and aesthetic of the document. So yeah, I would just use one bullet style, whatever that is, throughout. Vina, in general, how many pages should a resume be? So there is no general. I will tell you what my rule of thumb is. So my rule of thumb is for anyone who has 5 years, less than 5 years of work experience, 5 years of work experience in their target profession, that they would be on a 1-page resume. So typically that would be a recent or new grad or student, or someone who is very early in their career. And then anyone with more than 5 years of work experience would be on a 2-page resume. And I would expect to see someone who's applying to something more senior at, director or higher level, probably would be on a 3-page resume. But again, this is my my general rule of thumb. It's not a rule at all. I have put people with 20 years of work experience on 1 page because 20 of those years were with one company and one role. So 1 page worked. But I've also put people with less than 5 years of work experience onto 2 pages because there was that much that needed to be said. The general rule, if we want to give it a rule, although I hate attaching rules to resumes, is that your resume needs to be as long as it needs to be to tell the right stories in the right way. So that's about all I can say. But with the 4-page resume before, that resume easily could have fit onto 3 pages or 2 pages. There was just a lot being said that didn't need to be said, or it was being said in a way that wasn't effectively using the space. As we know, everything was in bullets pretty much, and that was taking up more room than it needed to be. Okay. All right. Sorry, Ruan, you are too late. I put the call out for resumes last week. So next month, if you see my call out, then make sure that you follow the instructions and let me know that you would like to be part of the review. I only offer reviews to unemployed folks or people who have been laid off due to the pandemic. Yeah, get in touch with me next month. All right, so let's take a look at our last resume here. Okay, where are you? Okay. All right, just zoom in a bit. Okay, so this is for a product manager, someone who wants to become a product manager. So structurally good. This is well structured. Contact info, again, similar feedback to the last resume. I would consider stating the larger metro that your city or town is a part of. LinkedIn, you had your LinkedIn there, but it was HTTP. We want to make sure it's the HTTPS version. And you just grab that directly from your LinkedIn profile in the address bar and the URL bar, copy it, and then paste it directly into your resume, and then hit space, and then that will automatically hyperlink it. Okay, so let's take a look here. So summary. I like where you're headed with this part of the sentence where you drive results with the customer in mind. I like the customer in mind part in particular, but what specifically are the types of results that you're driving? So we want to get specific here. Dedicated and versatile, those words sound good, but they're not really telling the reader much. So we want to get a little more specific about how we describe ourselves as a product manager, or we just cut that entirely and just say product manager with proven ability to drive whatever kind of results with the customer in mind. All right, the second sentence is better, highly skilled in identifying new opportunities and leading teams to drive product strategy and vision. To what ends? Like, so you drive strategy and vision to achieve what? So let's get specific. Let's bring that sentence full circle. All right. So your skills, how you approach your skills is fine, but we want to make sure that there's a space in between the separators on both the beginning and end of the separator. Otherwise, it's just going to add that vertical separator to the word, and we don't want that. Okay. All right. Professional experience. Really glad to see that you have a career transition note here. To kind of round it out a bit, are you taking any courses? Is there anything that you can note here about how you've been spending your time? That would be really helpful as well. Let's get into your role here. So trade marketing logistics specialist. What does that role title mean exactly? Like, what would be the equivalent industry title for that role? I fear a reader is going to get very confused by that role title. So maybe consider renaming it. It sounds like you product managed logistics. Possibly this was a product operations type of role. Not entirely sure. So let's see here. So one thing I'm noticing throughout is your bullets are very responsibilities focused. So we need to make sure that our bullets are highlighting accomplishments, like the best stuff that we achieved on the job. And we need to make sure that we're providing a result of a result and then giving context to how we achieve those results. So if we compare this resume to the territory manager resume, they're missing different things. So with the territory manager resume, we didn't have the context of the accomplishments. So they did a great job of quantifying their work and their results, but they didn't bring it full circle by including the context or how they achieved those results. In this scenario, we're missing the results, but we have the context. So we need to make sure that our resume has both in our accomplishments. So, for example, conducted customer outreach across several global departments to gain a deep understanding on internal and external customer needs and challenges. Okay, what did you find out? How did it inform the processes and procedures you were building? You said enhance customer experience. By how much? How much improvement to delivery time? Overall, what were you shipping? How far were you shipping it? So generally speaking, we just really need more quantifiable accomplishments here. So then we carry down to senior product manager. So similar overall feedback, we need the accomplishments to have results. You already have the context and the why or the how for how you achieve the results. Now we need to fill out the accomplishments, each of the bullets with the actual result that you achieved. So you mentioned some launches down here. So how successful were your launches? Can you measure them in terms of like sales, in terms of revenue or units sold? What were the measurements of success? Let's bring those in here. You mentioned that you improved, I think you improved product lifecycle management right here. So how can we measure the success? How do you know that you improved product lifecycle management? What was the result of doing that work? You mentioned restructuring product review. How can we measure the success? We need to give also some context to your actual products here. Talk about the products. Make this very products heavy, if you will. Talk about the products, the process of managing and developing the products, the end result of selling the products. We need more product information. So one thing I'm worried about is you've got senior product manager and then you go into a specialist role. So we need to, you did say that you were appointed, but this looks like a demotion. So going from manager to specialist does not look like progression. It looks like lateral or possibly demotion. So we'll need to make sure that this is why I would recommend renaming the role itself, because we don't want it to seem like you went into a role that was at a junior level to what you were operating. Okay, let's talk about key accounts logistics analyst. So you mentioned that you enhanced the customer experience here as well, I think. So how much did you enhance it? Like, how can we measure that enhancement? You helped or you did exceed account sales goals by how much? So again, more quantifying, or bring some quantifying in here. And then we move on to sales analyst. And so again, I have a concern. So you went from product planning manager to sales analyst. Again, this looks like a backward step. I know it's not, because you're getting assigned, like these are all special assignments, but I'm just worried. So if you can rename sales analyst, that would help. If you can rename key accounts logistics analyst, that would also help, so that it doesn't look like you're getting these manager roles and then taking a step back. That's what I'm mostly worried about. So you mentioned in here that you redesigned promotional programs, I believe. So what did that lead to? Again, bringing in results. And then product planning manager. So I like that you're talking about 20 brands. Can you give some more details around scope of the 20 brands? Maybe like sales figures of these 20 brands. So when we're talking about 20 brands, are we talking about 20 small brands, or are we talking about 20 huge, massively profitable global brands? Like help the reader really understand what we're talking about when we say 20 brands. So you restructured the launch plan strategy. So what did that lead to? What was the result? You created standard trend analysis reports to aid in identifying a variety of things. Okay. So it ensured the proper assortment mix for all brands. So that's good. Reduced inventory by identifying underproductive. So did you reduce inventory as a result of these reports that you built? So help the reader make sure, like help the reader understand kind of the full concept here in this one bullet. Organized a collaborating a new product. Not sure what's being said here. Buying review process with key stakeholders. Organized a new product buying review process. Okay, did you organize it, or did you create it, or did you establish it? Did you build it? Make sure you're taking credit for what you've actually done, and help the reader understand the impact of this. So again, this is where a quantifiable accomplishment will really help. Talk about sales, talk about, like I said, units sold, new product buying review process. You could talk about how much faster this review process was after you rebuilt it. There's a lot of different ways this could go. And by bringing numbers in, the reader will really get a better idea of the work and impact of your work. Okay, and education is fine. I presume that you didn't complete the degree, so I'm glad you put coursework. So that's great. Technology, that's fine. Enjoys quickly learning new programs. I don't think you need that line necessarily. I think that anyone will see with the sheer amount of tech that you know that you probably pick it up pretty quickly, and you enjoy learning it as well. So that's that. All right, let's hop back to the chat. I will stop the share. All right, only a couple minutes over. That's not bad. All right. Okay, resume number 2. How would you elaborate on the topics you mentioned without getting too lengthy? Which topics? Sorry, again, delay and me not seeing the question. So can you just specify which topics I was referring to specifically? I said a lot about each resume, so I just want to make sure I'm properly answering your question. Okay, Candace, she can rename missionary experience to NGO or nonprofit. She could, specifically though, and let me know what you think, Candace, specifically though, she was training missionaries. So how would you rename the people who she was training? What different title would you give them? Let me know your thoughts, because I don't have the specific answer for it. Ruan, how do we give product or sale info without breaching internal contract information? Okay, so that's something that you have to be cognizant of. Can you talk about it, or can you not talk about it? If you cannot talk about it, then you will want to talk in terms of maybe numbers of digits. So when I haven't been allowed to give very specific figures for sales for clients, I may have said double digits, triple digits, things like that. Then we're not giving away the true information. I think that, with a resume though, it is a confidential document. So you should, have some leeway with what you can specify because it is confidential, but on LinkedIn, certainly not. We're not going to include those specifics on LinkedIn since it's very, very public. But you have to gauge that for yourself. But you're only putting you would only put sales figures when it makes sense. So I'm not sure what what line of work you are in. If I think I've received a message from you before, and I don't recall it being sales related. So only include sales figures if it makes sense, as it does to the territory manager role and resume. And typically on a resume for a salesperson, a sales professional, you can put your sales figures in your resume. Vina, with respect to job titles, you recommend we use a more common title that describes your role as opposed to what the role is actually called, the company you're employed with? Yes. So let's talk about the one that we were looking at. So I think it was Wendy on Office Hours a couple episodes ago, Wendy Daly, she said, no, she was saying that Katrina Kibben said job titles are made up, and they exactly are. So I would say you can take creative license for renaming that job title to something that is more industry recognizable or an industry standard. So with the last resume we're looking at, it was like trade marketing logistics specialist. I have no idea what that is, but it could be my own ignorance of that field. But I suspect what that role actually translates into is product operations manager or logistics manager. That's what I think it translates into. So I would rename it, let's say logistics manager or product operations manager. And then in the paragraph where we're describing the role itself, I would say that, under the official title of trade marketing logistics specialist, oversaw logistics for blah, 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 or global, whatever, give context to the company itself, the employer itself. So you're renaming it, but then you're also being transparent with what it is technically on paper. Hope that makes sense. Great. Thank you, Tracy. All right. All right. Any other questions? Please make sure that you let me know. Yes, that's a common practice. But like I said, I would either specify what it is on paper or name it. And then, so there's two ways we can do it. So rename it and then specify what it is on paper at that employer. So as I've mentioned, logistics manager, and then underneath we're saying acting under the title of, acting under the official title of, what was it? Trade marketing logistics specialist, I think it was. And then we're describing the role, our role within the company, and then a little context of the company itself. That's option number one. Option number two is that we leave the title as it is, and then we say in the paragraph, acting as logistics manager to help the reader understand more so what the scope of the role actually translates to. In the case of the last resume, I wouldn't recommend that second option though, because for me, the trade marketing logistics specialist is so hard for a reader to understand or connect with that I think that they would instantly be lost on what the actual role is. They get really stuck on that job title, making not much sense, that they wouldn't really be receptive to reading the rest of the paragraph in entirety. I think they're just going to get stuck and confused. So we want to eliminate as much of that confusion as possible. Sorry, Ron, I'm not sure what you're asking. Oh, I think you're referring back to the sales. What if they want proof of your claims? I'm not sure that they, I mean, they can background check you. So that's why it's important for you to be truthful about what you're including on your resume. So I'm not sure if I'm answering your question. All right.
Okay. Any final questions before I let y'all go? Thank you to everybody who volunteered their resumes. If you have tuned in tonight, really appreciate helping other job seekers learn from your resumes. I hope that the information was helpful for you to optimize your resumes. And I wish you all the best in your job search as you move forward. Take care, everybody. Have a great evening.